Hello everyone. Today let's discuss Ben Jonson's play Every Man in His Humour. Every Man in His Humour, 1598. Ben Jonson, 1572-1637. Written in 1598, Every Man in His Humour is a satirical comedy of humours written by Ben Jonson. This play marks the beginning of Ben Jonson's comedy career and introduced the comedy of humours genre. The play was first performed by the Lord Chamberlain's Men with Shakespeare as one of the actors. The play focuses on human personality types based on the medieval theory of humours. The medieval theory of humours, rooted in Hippocratic and Galenic medicine, proposed that human health and temperament were governed by four bodily fluids: blood, plum, yellow bile, and black bile. Balance among these humours was believed essential for physical and mental well-being. Medieval theory of humours in literary context. Blood, sanguine, sociable, hopeful, amorous. Source of origin is liver. Associated with romantic heroes or comic figures, light-hearted, passionate characters. The second humour is phlegm, that is phlegmatic, that is passive, calm, dull. Source of origin is brain or lungs. Used to portray indecisive, stoic, or sleepy characters, often comic or secondary roles. The third humour is yellow bile, that is choleric, that means aggressive, ambitious, or angry type. Source of origin is gallbladder. And the literary associations common in villains or fiery tragic figures. For example, Iago, Medea, then intense, vengeful drives. The last humour is black bile, that is melancholic, introspective, sorrowful. The source of origin is spleen. Central to tragic heroes, example Hamlet, Hieronymo. It is linked to genius and existential grief. Now coming to our play, let's analyze which all characters really stand for each humours. First of all the novel is a phlegmatic character, calm, wise. A cautious father worried about his son. The next character is Edward Noble. Is a sanguine, that is optimistic or passionate, a young man interested in poetry and adventure. Then we have a brainworm. Brainworm is a choleric person, cunning, resourceful, a witty servant who tricks others for his master's benefit. Then we have Kitley. Kitley is a melancholic, that is jealous, insecure person, a merchant consumed by irrational jealousy. Then we have Dame Kitley, that is sanguine character, charming, good-natured. Dame Kitley is Kitley's innocent wife, wrongly accused of infidelity. Then we have Wellbred. Wellbred is a sanguine character, a lively young man who enjoys fun and mischief. Then we have a Captain Bobadil, is a choleric person that is boastful, aggressive, a cowardly soldier who pretends to be a great fighter. Now let's have a look at the plot. In Act First, there is introduction to humors and the characters. Old Noble is worried about his son Edward Noble, who is interested in poetry and untrustworthy friends. Brainworm, a clever servant, works for Edward and deceives Old Noble to help his master. Kitley, a jealous merchant, fears that his wife is unfaithful. Act Second, there is misinformation and tricks. Edward's friend Wellbred invites him to a gathering of wild, unruly men. Old Noble, thinking his son is getting into trouble, decides to spy on him. Brainworm disguises himself and misleads Old Noble. Act 3, there is misunderstandings and mistaken identities. The group of troublemakers include a Captain Bobadil, a boastful coward. Kitley's jealousy increases as he suspects his wife of infidelity. Brainworm continues to deceive multiple characters, creating confusion. Now Act 4, there is climax or confrontations and fights. Bobadil gets humiliated, showing he is not the great fighter he claims to be. Kitley fears lead to a confrontation but are proven baseless. Old Noble discovers the truth about a brainworm's tricks. Act 5, there is resolution, order restored. Everything is revealed and the misunderstandings are cleared. Brainworm is forgiven and Old Noble accepts his son's independence. The play ends with marriages and their reconciliations following a classic comedic structure. Now let's analyze the themes in the play. First of all, the comedy of humors, then strife of social behavior, mistaken identity and deception, parental authority versus youthful freedom, jealousy and irrational fears. First one, the comedy of humors. Based on the four bodily humors, blood, plum, yellow bile, black bile, Jonson classifies his characters into distinct personality types. Every character's actions are driven by the dominant humor, leading to exaggerated behavior. The second theme, that is satire of social behavior. The play mocks different societal figures, from jealousy merchants to cowardly soldiers. Jonson criticizes pretentiousness, hypocrisy, and a self-delusion. The next theme is mistaken identity and deception. Brainworm's disguises and tricks drive the comedy. Characters jump to conclusions based on false information. Next theme, that is parental authority versus youthful freedom. Old Noble represents traditional values, while Edward seeks independence. The play ends with a balance between youth and wisdom. The next theme, that is jealousy and irrational fears. Kitley's jealousy shows how paranoia destroys relationships. The theme of mistaken jealousy is later explored in Shakespeare's play Othello. Now let's analyze the style and the literary devices used by Ben Jonson in his play. First of all, we have a realistic dialogue. Unlike Shakespeare's poetic plays, Ben Jonson's prose is direct and conversational. Then satirical tone. The play mocks human behavior similar to Roman satirists like Plautus. Next, irony and wordplay. Characters contradict themselves, especially Captain Bobadil. Disguise and deception. Brainworm drives the plot through clever tricks. Now, the influence and their legacy created by Ben Jonson's play. One of the first plays to introduce realistic comedy based on personality types is Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humour. The play inspired later comedic traditions, including William Shakespeare's character Falstaff in A Henry IV. Jonson set the foundation for Jonson's later plays, including Walpole and The Alchemist. Jonson's play influenced the modern sitcoms and character-driven comedy where characters have exaggerated traits. Now it's time for us to analyze the main quotations from the play. First one. Give me a man that is not passion's slave, and I will wear him in my heart's core. Said by Noel. This quote reflects the ideal of rational self-control over impulsive behavior. Novel values emotional moderation, aligning with the Renaissance virtue of temperance. He critiques the characters in the play who are ruled by the humours. Ben Jonson emphasizes the wisdom of self-mastery in a contrast to the chaos of indulgent temperaments. Next quotation. Men may construe things after the fashion, clean from the purpose of the things themselves. Said by Noel. Noel comments on the misinterpretation of events, a recurring theme. This quote captures how perception, colored by personal prejudice or humor, distorts truth. It shows Ben Jonson's awareness of subjectivity in a human understanding. Dramatically, it foreshadows misunderstandings and a comic confusion in the plot. Next quote. I am resolved to turn over a new leaf and begin from this very line I write. Said by Kitley. Kitley's words reflect his anxiety and the desire for moral reform. However, the metaphor of turning over a new leaf also has ironic overtones. It suggests a fresh start that may never truly occur. His jealousy and his suspicion dominate him, revealing the gap between intention and action. Jonson mocks the ineffectiveness of shallow resolutions. Next quote. Jealousy is the jaundice of the soul. Said by Noel. A metaphor that equates jealousy with a disease. It reinforces the humoral theory linking emotion with a physical imbalance. The image of jaundice, that is a yellowing illness, evokes distortion of vision and a judgment. Jonson critiques how jealousy corrupts relationships and their rationality. The quote reflects the play's moral tone regarding inner disorders. Next quote. What have I to do with time? Said by Brainworm. Spoken by the cunning servant Brainworm, this quote reveals his trickster mentality. He sees himself outside ordinary constraints of time, morality, and class. It reinforces his role as an agent of chaos and clever manipulations. Jonson uses Brainworm to explore social mobility and the cleverness of subaltern voices. Next quote. In your strict observation of the customs and the laws of the city, you are a right humorous man, said by Novel. This line humorously exposes the rigidity and affectation of characters like Justice Clement. To be humorous here is not to be funny, but ruled by an exaggerated temperament. Jonson satirizes how obsessive adherence to form or role become a flaw. The phrase critiques social pretension and pedantry. Next quote. The dignity of truth is lost with much protesting, said by Novel. A Francis Bacon-like in tone, this aphorism suggests that truth should be evident without over-insistence. Over-defensiveness or protest often implies guilt or insecurity. Jonson points to the performative nature of honesty in social discourse. It reflects the play's concern with appearance versus reality. Next quote. I love not to be made just, said by Kitley. This line reveals Kitley's intense pride and insecurity. His fear of ridicule drives his suspicious and jealous behavior. Ironically, his very efforts to avoid being mocked lead to comic situations. Jonson critiques the vanity that blinds people to their own foolishness. Next quote. Custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. It is said by Novel about Edward. Here, Novel excuses his son's light-hearted nature as a product of habit. The quote reflects the tension between generational expectations and their personal identity. Jonson touches on the debate between nature versus nurture, especially regarding youth. Novel's commentary offers a rare moment of parental tolerance. Next quote. He speaks all cream, skimmed with flattery. Spoken by Cobb about Matthew. This metaphor mocks Matthew's artificial politeness and poetic pretensions. Cream suggests richness, but here it is excessive and unwholesome. Jonson ridicules the foppish character's lack of authenticity. It fits his satire of affectation in speech and manners. Next quote. He is a creature of a most profane humour. Spoken by Novel about a Bobadil. Novel captures the absurdity of Captain Bobadil, who pretends to be a brave soldier, but is in fact a coward. The word humour here points to his overblown bravado. Jonson ridicules the false heroism of men who live in fantasies of war and honour. This continues the play's theme of delusion and self-deception. Next quote. You are too hard and too violent. It is not the way. Spoken by Dame Kitley. Dame Kidley urges her husband toward moderation, rejecting his controlling behavior. Her voice introduces reason and balance, opposing the obsessive male figures. Jonson gives her surprising moral authority for a woman in a patriarchal setting. He also underscores the play's central concern, that is, the danger of extremity in temperament. Next quote. I shall have matter enough to hold me laughing a 12-month. Spoken by Justice Clement. Justice Clement, the eccentric judge, reacts to the unraveling of the comic plot. His laughter marks the cathartic resolution typical of comedies. It also shows the value Jonson places on comic justice, where folly is exposed and punished with wit. Justice Clement's laughter stands in for the audience's judgment and release. Next quote. It is the disease of not listening, sir. Spoken by Justice Clement. This line is deeply ironic and wise. Clement diagnoses the problem of many characters. They are too absorbed in their own voices or fears to truly listen. Jonson implies that communication failure drives much of human folly. It is a sharp critique of social and emotional deafness. Now the next quote. Your ignorance is the mother of your admiration. Spoken by Justice Clement. This satirical jab points to how ignorance breeds foolish wonder. People admire what they don't understand, not because it is worthy, but because they lack knowledge. Jonson exposes the false authority gained through illusion. It critiques the gullibility and misplaced reverence.